Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah, salatu wassalam ala rasulillah. Wa ba'd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Following our normal tradition and our ritual practice of what's our tradition? Review. To make what? Review of yesterday. Of the second and last session of yesterday, last night. Tayyib. Bismillah. We have a few minutes. And as a benefit, the review session, or our review session, the review session that we do before the classes, not like we're studying for an exam. We're talking about like muraja of the past dars, the previous dars. We like to do it with stamina, quick, exciting, 1, 2, hop, skip, and a jump, move forward. Nothing boring, nothing small, nothing slow, cumbersome. The mudhakara is supposed to be what? Mun'isha. It's not supposed to be mumilla, yani. Quick. Everybody got this? Very important with regards to the necessary energy for the lesson. Fahimna hada? Muhim jiddan. It's like having a good breakfast in the morning. Breakfast is not supposed to be too heavy, in which it bogs you down. Nor is it supposed to be too light, in which you're hungry in an hour or two. Something that's efficient, energy food. How you start your day is critical. Everybody understand this or not? The Prophet ﷺ, he taught us this. He taught us the importance of the morning and the importance of nourishment in the morning, starting with Salat al-Fajr. And what happens when you oversleep for Salat al-Fajr, and what the shaitan does, and how a person's morning and day will be based off of that. Tayyib, khairan inshallah. So with that being said, what did we talk about yesterday? Last night, briefly. Fourth and the 5th century. Tayyib, what else did we talk about? Fadl al-Sunnah. Virtue of the Sunnah, makanat al-Sunnah, status of the Sunnah. What else? The mawaqif ashab al-ahwa wal-firaq min al-Sunnah al-Nabawiyya. Mawqifu or mawaqifu ashab al-ahwa wal-firaq min al-Sunnah al-Nabawiyya. The position and the attitude of the different people of desires and the sects, the groups with regards to the Sunnah, accepting it, rejecting it, how to deal with its narrators. We just mentioned the outline. We didn't study that at all, just the outline. Tell you, what else did we talk about yesterday, last night?
The different genres of hadith books?
Anwa', the different types, genres of books of hadith. All books of hadith aren't the same. They're different types, different categories, for different purposes and different usages. We mentioned that briefly, nothing more than the outline. We didn't actually get into the study of that yet. Tell you. Foundations of Hadith Compilation. The foundations of the compilation of Hadith. How they were laid down. In general, briefly, just the bulletin point, nothing more. Quick, next. Golden age of Islamic sciences. Medicine, everything. Let alone Hadith. Tayyib. The most important places for the early Muslims to acquire hadith, the rihla. Rihla fi talab al-hadith. In general, in brief, nothing detailed. What else? The effects of historical events on the study of Islam, understanding the hadith, what was going on in the rest of the world, let alone inside of the Muslim world, of history, politics, social things. It has a direct effect on a person's understanding and on a person's practice of Islam. There is no question about that. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's message to the Meccans was accepted or rejected, was welcomed or banished based off of what? Everything that was theological, their creed, everything that pertained to what they believed in or didn't believe in. Yes or no? No, it wasn't. Certain things they didn't accept with regards to their what? Creed and philosophy. Resurrection, the angels being the daughters of Ar-Rahman, وَهُمْ يَكْفُرُونَ بِالرَّحْمَنِ, disbelieve in some of the names of Allah, things like this. Shufa'a, our interceders, those who intercede for us, between us and Allah, we're too dirty, we're too filthy to go directly to Allah. We have to have partners. Aliha. But that wasn't everything. There were other effects, such as what? Social, political, leadership, authority, language, social class. How can he say that the slave is equal as the master? The Qurashi is equal to the non-Qurashi. The Arab is equivalent to the non-Arab. How can he say this? Everybody understand this? فَلْيَعْبُدُوا رَبَّ هَذَا الْبَيْتِ. Allah says, let them worship what? The Lord of this house. Who did what for them? أَطْعَمَهُمْ مِنْ جُوءٍ وَآمَنَهُمْ مِنْ خَوْفٍ أَلَمْ تَرَ كَيْفَ فَعَلَ رَبُّكَ بِأَصْحَابِ الْفِيلِ. Allah protected them even though they weren't what? Muslims. The status of Quraysh, their leadership. We're going to lose, وَفِي السَّمَاءِ رِزْقُكُمْ. You think that's an accident? مَا أُرِيدُ مِنْهُمْ رِزْقٍ. They were afraid that if we obey Muhammad, we'll lose out on our money. The Quraysh has been subdued to this young boy, this madman. The other tribes won't respect us. We won't be feared. We'll lose possession of the property of the Kaaba, etc. This is reality. The treatment of women. Treatment of orphans. Everybody clear on this? This is all pertaining to social and political what? Influence. Ibn Taymiyyah. Would it have been Ibn Taymiyyah if he lived in a peaceful, calm environment? If everyone there was practicing the Sunnah, was on the correct Aqidah, there weren't no non-Muslims invading the lands of the Muslims, would there even be Ibn Taymiyyah? Of course not. The thing that made Ibn Taymiyyah was his what? His world. The things that were surrounding him. There was a need to become Ibn Taymiyyah. Everybody understand this? Ibn Abdul Wahhab. If it wasn't for the political, the social, the economic, the other problems, along with the deviant Aqidah, there would be no what? In his da'wah. And this is crucial to understand Islam. When reading these books, everybody understand this? The influences. The what? The influences. Khairan, inshallah. What else do we have? The reason why the author wrote the book. Very important. Sababu ta'lif al-kitab. Why did the author write the book? Very important when studying the book. Because the author may not have written this book for this audience. He wrote this book for this audience and not what? That audience. Tayyib. What else? Istilahi meaning of Sunnah. Mention our general outline. Not even mention the meaning, but that's what we're going to study. Tayyib, we'll take a few more answers before we stop. You guys are still slow. This is sluggish. This is sluggish. Sluggish, boring. I'm falling asleep. Ta'assub. The effects of ta'assub, of fanaticism upon the Muslim world in the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th century.
Also because of the deviations, there was a need for
the inhirafat. People were deviating from the straight path in one way or another. There was a need to further the hadith movement, to further the hadith culture, to further the books, summarize, explain, combine, make hybrid, etc. Khairan, inshallah. Tayyib. All right. Jazakumullah khairan. With that being said, let's get started with today's lesson. And I will need volunteers to read, inshallah ta'ala, from brothers and from sisters. Bi'idhnillah. Okay. It's a new laptop we have with us today. So please give me a second in getting familiar with it with regards to moving the page down. Okay, all right. So today's lesson, bi'idhnillah, actually getting into the book. There we go. For those who have the PDF, it is page 13. Page 13. Page 13. Tayyib, page 13. Page 13. Everyone's there on page 13, inshallah. All right. We have some English slides for you as well. A very important summary for the whole entire course. Khairan. Jazakallah khairan. View. Play. All right. Khairan, inshallah. So we have volunteer reader inshallah. Start us off with in English. We have any volunteers? Fadl. History of the compilation of a hadith. Or even easier way of saying it, compilation of hadith. Or an even easier way of saying it, hadith compilation and its history. Fadl. Sunnah. What does the word sunnah mean? And what is this meaning?
The word sunnah literally means a way and or laid down practice. As for according to the Islamic literature, then it depends on in what field of expertise the term is being depicted. 1. It has a specific meaning according to the scholars of hadith. 2. Similarly according to the scholars of aqidah. 3. Also according to the jurists of Islam. 4. It has a special intended meaning when compared to bid'ah, etc.
So the first thing says sunnah. Not hadith, but sunnah. What does the word sunnah mean? We said that the word sunnah literally means a way. And or a laid down practice. A laid down practice. This is what the word sunnah means to an Arabian Christian, an Arabian Jew, an Arabian Zoroastrian, an Arabian atheist, an Arabian agnostic, or someone who is an Arabian, but he has learned the pure, organic tongue of the Arabs. Nothing to do with what? Islam. Nothing to do with what? Islam. You study Latin. Latin is oftentimes associated with what religion? Christianity. But it doesn't necessarily have to. Someone who speaks Latin who was a pagan or a Satanist. Everybody clear on this? A Satanist or a pagan. Everybody understand this? But he spoke what? Latin. Christianity and Latin oftentimes associated, but it doesn't mean that everything in Latin is automatically the understanding of the Christian. Hebrew, or even more accurate, especially today, Yiddish. Every language of someone who speaks Yiddish doesn't necessarily mean that they are Jewish. Everybody clear on this? Wahakada, Hindi, Buddhist, everybody understand this or not? Mandarin, Cantonese doesn't mean that they're a Buddhist or Taoist. Everybody understand this? Even though the first thing that you think about with this language is this religion. Everybody understand this? So the Arabic language, everything in the Arabic language does not have the Islamic meaning to it. Very important principle. It has nothing to do with our course. Anything out of the deen. Everybody understand this or not? The word ilah. What does the word ilah mean in the Arabic language? With nothing to do with what? The aqidah of Islam. What do the Arabs understand from the word ilah? We're not asking the question. We're just showing you the proper way of thinking. The proper way of what? Of thinking and taking a course. What does the actual word what? Mean according to the Muslims, right? No, not according to the Muslims. According to the what? The people of the language. The people of the what? Even if most of the people that speak that language are Muslim. But that isn't the language. The language, the word sunnah has a meaning, and it had a meaning. It has a usage, and it had a usage before there was Muhammad's message. Everybody clear on this? And that meaning is sunnah. A person smokes cigarettes. I smoke a box of cigarettes a day. The box. That is my what? It's my sunnah. That's what I do. That's how I like to do it. Clear on this? Understand this or not? I drink a 6-pack of beer every day when I wake up. That's my what? Sunnah. Waliyadhu billah. Is that Islamic? But it is a way, or is a laid down practice, the custom, the tradition. Everybody understand this or not? That's what the word linguistically means. Pertaining to the Muslim scholars. Now, not pertaining to the Muslim scholars. You keep letting me trick you. Based on the what? Linguists. A language is very important, has nothing to do with faith. Don't mix the two. Language is one thing, what? Total different thing. Fahimna hada? We as Muslims use the term based off of its original linguistical meaning, but with much more. Clear on this or not? So the word sunnah literally means a way and or a laid down practice. And there are other meanings as well, which we'll read bid'nillahi ta'ala when we get back to the Tadween book. B, as for according to the Islamic legislature, notice that we did not say according to the what? Scholars of Hadith. We said the Sharia, the Deen. Then it depends on in what field of expertise the term is being depicted. I.e. in Islam, there are different specialties, different specialities, different fields of expertise. You go to the hospital, there's the doctor who specializes in surgery, brain surgery, heart surgery. The doctor that specializes with the skin, specializes in the heart, specializes with the eyes, specializes in the brain, specializes with the bone. And then there's specialists among a field of speciality. I focus on feet. I focus on what? Feet. You have a back problem, you go see my colleague. Even though the vertebrae and the foot is all, or they're all what? Bones. For him to have that? Everybody understand this or not? You have to see my what? My colleague. He specializes. He's a chiropractor, back surgeon. I specialize only in the what? Feet. So when I use a word or a term, it may or may not be the same as my colleague who focuses on the bones of the upper body, of the torso. Fahimna hada? So the word sunnah in Islam doesn't have just one what? Meaning. Everybody understand this? And this is crucially important. And it will avoid or will cause you to avoid many takhabbutat, all types of contradictions and blunders, which we'll get into if there's enough time. Tayyib, number one. It has a specific meaning according to the scholars of hadith. When the ulama of hadith, the muhaddithun, when they say sunnah, it may or may not mean the same thing when the ulama of fiqh, the fuqaha, say sunnah. Number two, similarly according to the scholars of aqidah, the ulama who specialize in tawheed and iman, the aqidah, they use the word sunnah, and it may or may not be the same as the meaning of the scholars of hadith. And it's a critical error to do what? Jumble the two together. Everybody understand this? So, let's give a perfect example. We mentioned the book of Imam al-Baghawi, rahimahullah, yesterday, called Sharh al-Sunnah. Sharh al-Sunnah. It's the same meaning as Al-Tabari's book, Sharh al-Sunnah, let alone Barbahari. Correct?
No.
Adam, you're late. How are you going to be successful when you come late? You're sitting on the back row. Where should you be sitting? The front row. Huh? Ali, I see you. Gulad, you can't. Hi, mashallah, too tall. I see you guys. Guys come late. You guys gotta come what? On time, huh? Tayyib. Moving forward. The word Sharh Sunnah, according to Barbahari, is the same as Baghawi. Naam? We said this, right? We did. Said this just now. They mean the same thing. Sahih? Two different things. Because Barbahari's book is about Aqidah. Baghawi's book is about Hadith. Clear on this or not? Tayyib. Number three. Also according to the jurist of Islam, the fuqaha, the Shafi'i fuqaha. Naam? The Hanafi fuqaha. Naam? The Maliki fuqaha, the Hanbali fuqaha, the Zaydi fuqaha. Naam? Whatever faqih or group or school, when they use the word sunnah, it may or may not mean the same as the scholars of aqidah or hadith. Clear on this or not? Number four, it has a special intended meaning when compared to bid'ah, etc. I.e., the term is used, sunnah, not by itself, not by its what? But it's only used when it is? No, in contrast, exactly, when it's compared to bid'ah. This is bid'ah and this is sunnah, not hadith. Everybody with me or not? Raise your hand if you had some green tea before the class. Raise your hand. One. How many other people drank green tea before the class? Try it out, huh? Inshallah. Drink some what? Green tea. Hopefully, as they say, an apple away keeps the what? Doctor away. A cup of green tea before the class, hopefully it'll tune up your head. You got to try it out, inshallah. طيب, with that being said, we have 4 different examples here. 4 different classes of ulama. Ulama who study, who focus on what? Hadith. Ulama who focus and study or specialize in what? Aqidah. Ulama who focus and study on what? Fiqh. And ulama who study and focus on? طيب. And then we have, mathalan, even more, you say usuliyin, the ulama of usul al-fiqh. When they use the word sunnah, it has a maqsood. And we say sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't the same. Clear on this? How do you know when it is or when it isn't? This is confusing. It's this and that. The only key to this, Mahdi, is what? Is through al-fiqh fi din. Understanding, learning. Emptying your cup and then inshallah filling it back up with the proper information. Man yuridillahu bihi khayran yufaqihu fi din. Right, moving forward, we'll give some examples of this maybe later on. Next point. Hadith meaning. A new volunteer to read, please. Fadal, you gotta raise your voice, please.
The word hadith has 2 linguistic usages.
The word hadith, not like sunnah, has 2 linguistic usages. According to the Muslims, it has 2. How many usages? 2, right? No, wrong. We said linguistically, Muslim, Jew, Christian, atheist, anybody of a lugha al-arabiyyah, with the condition that the lugha al-arabiyyah is organic. Lugha al-arabiyyah in 2018 is the same, but at the same time it isn't the same as back then. The people's minds were different. Everybody understand this? And the same is different with regards, the same applies to English. There's an English language and there's also an English culture, literature. There's an English mind. No question about that. You can learn French, but it doesn't mean that you think like a Frenchman. Everybody understand this? I learned Somali. It doesn't mean that I think like a what? It's different. Everybody clear on this? This is crucially important. In the UK, do they not speak the same language we speak, English? But if you talk to someone who from the UK, they're British, sometimes, not all the times, but oftentimes they think a bit what? Differently. Certain words, certain terms, certain wit, certain jokes that you may not get. You're like, what's so funny? He's cracking up. He's dying on the floor, tossing and turning. So I don't get the joke. But any other British person will walk in and do the same what? He will be rolling on the floor. Everybody understand this? Canadian and American. Certain jokes the Canadians may not what? May not get. Or the American brothers may not what? May not get. Even though it's the same what? Language. But the culture and the mind is different. Even though there are many parallels and consistencies. We understand this or not? Very important that language is not supposed to be separated from what? Culture. They're supposed to go hand in hand. Language and culture are supposed to go what? Hand in hand. Everybody understand this is very important in issues of aqidah. We start talking about at-ta'wil, we start talking about al-majaz. You start talking about al-majaz. يعني we mentioned نحن قلنا إنه يعني ستكون فوائد لمن؟ للمتفوقين. There's going to be some fawaid not for everybody. When you study Babul Majaz, okay, one of the ways of those ulama who refute this, the majaz, making the majaz in Lugha al-Arabiyyah, al-majaz fi bab al-sifat, is that هل عهد بأن اللغة تنعزل وتنفصل عن التركيب عن السياق عن الذوق هل يعقل هذا الشيء؟ رأيت أسدا يخطب. I saw a lion giving a sermon. He was an asad. What does that mean? Is that literal? Is that figurative? You say figurative. Another person says what? Literal. What's one of the ways that we can determine whether it's figurative or literal is what? It's the culture, the context, the dhawq, the whole language as a whole. Everybody understand this? I saw a lion on the minbar, meaning he was a what? Ferocious, spellbinding khatib. That's what's understood in the language. And not someone literally understanding it was an asad, a ferocious carnivore, a big cat from Africa on the minbar. That's what the word literally means. Ra'aytu asadan yakhtub. But do the people of the Arabic language understand that in their culture? For you to even come and say there needs is majaz. فهمت هذا؟ النقطة مهمة جدا. طيب بعدين. The word hadith has 2 linguistic usages. Number 1, A as a noun. فضل أخي.
As a noun, a story
It means, when it's used as a noun,
a story,
a narrative,
discourse, or legend.
a legend. Number 2,
As an adjective, it means new, brand new, or innovative.
you say hadith, يعني قصة. You say hadith, يعني خلاص القصة خلاص. نقول حديث بمعنى قصة خلاص. المعنى الثاني أو الاستعمال الثاني في اللغة نقول هذا حديث يعني هو جديد. Adjective and noun. As a noun, hadith means what? A narrative, a story. Hadith al-ghashiyah. As a wasf, a sifa. An adjective, it means what? جديد. محدثات. وشر الأمور محدثاتها. محدث. يعني مجدد. It's new. يقولون this. فهمنا هذا? As for
its meaning in the technical Islamic sense.
Technical Islamic sense. المعنى الاصطلاحي في الدين. فضل.
Then it is anything is attributed to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Anything, whether it is something he supposedly said, did, approved of, and allowed. How he looked and or behaved and morally conducted himself. And regardless whether it is true or false, genuine or spurious.
So we have to forgive some errors from the editor. The editor's job is to make sure that it's what? As a what? Nope. La, we never said that. Tayyib. We forgot, Tayyib. We say what? As far as its technical sense in Islam, then it is anything that is attributed to Muhammad, Prophet Muhammad, anything that he supposedly said, whether it is a statement, قال رسول الله حب الوطن من الإيمان, love of one's land is from faith. This is called a what? Hadith. Is this authentic? Is it weak? Is it made up? That's not initially what? Relevant. That's not important. The definition of hadith, ma udifa. Anything that is what? Attributed to the Prophet ﷺ. Someone says that Muhammad said, loving one's country is a part of faith. We call that a what? Hadith. Did he actually say those words? That's not the point right now. The point is that it's technically classified as a hadith. Anything that is what? Yurwa, yudafu, yusnad. Anything that's attributed to, that's called a what? Hadith. Or an action, something that he did. Prophet Muhammad did this. Or something that he approved of. The Prophet Muhammad allowed his companions to do that. Everybody understand this? Moving forward, how he looked. The Prophet was tall, he was short, he was dark, he was light, he was fair, he had brown skin, he had straight hair, he had curly hair, he had this type of hair, this type of fingers. His physical description. The Prophet ﷺ is what? Physical description. His what? Physical description. How kind he was to animals. Naam? Metaphysical, moral. Now, it isn't his physical character. He's tall, short, has nothing to do with his what? On the inside. Everybody understand this? For him now, we got it or not? After his physical description, we said what? How he looked, or before that, either or, give or take, qaddam or akhir, antahur. How he what? Behaved and morally conducted himself. Sifa khuluqiyya. Wasf khuluqi, la khalqi. Naam. Regardless, بغض النظر, regardless whether this thing that is attributed to Muhammad is what? True or false. Genuine or totally made up. For him now, this is the technical meaning of the word what? Hadith. And the word hadith in this usage is far more restricted than the word sunnah. Sunnah is far broader. It's far what? Broader, much bigger scope. The fuqaha, they don't have different usages of the word hadith. The ulama of tafsir, ulama of seerah, they don't, 99.9% of times they're going to be using what? Here, initially, even without some of all of the details though. This is daqiq, jiddan, finely tuned. Huh? And one may also say, أو إلى زمن النبوة. Anything that was what? Happened, attributed to the time of the, such as a tabi'i saying, this battle was fought like this and like that. Allah sent down the verse because of this and because of that. Clear on this? It's called hadith. Moving forward, we'll make some examples perhaps, if there's enough time. New volunteer. Any volunteers to read? Fadl ya akhi.
During the time of the Prophet
Sunnah compilation process. How?
During the time of the Prophet ﷺ, the Sunnah was preserved by memory and contrary to common belief, actual documentation.
First point. During the time of Muhammad ﷺ, the Sunnah was preserved in the hearts of men and women. In the hearts of men and women. This was, i.e., you would write in your notes, the primary method. The primary way, the main way. The Prophet ﷺ's statements and actions, Umar, was preserved how? Primarily by what? Umar. Primarily by what? Bil kitaba, sah? Bil sudur. In one's breast, one's chest, the heart. You memorize it by heart. Primarily. And also, contrary to common belief, there was actual hadiths were actually written down, which we'll take in the examples if there's enough time, inshallah. They were actually hadiths that were what? Were. But that wasn't the what? Main way. Moving forward. Tfadl ya akhi.
The companions began this process by following, imitating, and observing the acts of the Prophet ﷺ.
How did they start this? Observing, the last one should be first. Observing, looking at the Prophet, paying attention what he did, and paying attention to what he didn't do. And that's why we said what? Some of the ulama, they say that when you're in a class, you should never take notes. Not all of the ulama, we said what? Some of them. They say you should never take notes. Why? Because when you take notes, what can't you do? 100%. You can pay attention, 70%, 80%, you write down, but it's not the same as you what? Everybody clear on this? So the Sahaba, that was the first step of being what? Observant to Muhammad's actions. Everybody clear on this? After they observed, they did what? Imitated. And they followed. And that's also a means of preservation. Everybody understand this? Your son learns from you, your daughter learns from you, and you don't say anything to them. They mimic you. Naam? They what? They mimic you. And then when they have children, they pass it down. And you never ever what? Anything verbally. Did they not learn from you or not? Did they not pass down the teachings or not? Even though nothing was ever what? Said, let alone written down. So this is considered one of the foundations of the compilation of the Sunnah. It's how the Sahaba observed and did what? Physically did it. Everybody clear on this? Moving forward.
They also had many scrolls and
Scrolls, many scrolls. Not a few, but what? Many.
That contain several ahadith from the Prophet ﷺ.
Things in which the Prophet ﷺ told them to write down. Write this down. This number, this letter, this fulan, to this king, to this one, to this chieftain. Certain things that they got from the Prophet ﷺ, and they did what? Wrote them down. And they did what with the paper? Back then, they said what? They would roll it up and do what? Put it in the kum. Put it inside. Put it in the saddle. Put it in the scabbard of one's sword. Everybody understand this? The sheath of one's dagger. And they held on to these papers that they wrote down. Not complete whole books. We said scrolls. And we said what? Memorandums. Suhuf. Everybody understand this? And then when the Prophet ﷺ left them and a dispute came up, me and you fight over something. You say, this person is like this, and I say, no. And what do? What I wrote down from the Prophet ﷺ. Right, understand this? Everybody clear on this or not? Moving forward.
During the time of the successors, the Tabi'un, more recording of those ahadith that were widespread and passed down by the oral tradition took place.
During the time of the Tabi'un, i.e., what did we say yesterday? When is the time of the Tabi'un?
First was the companions.
We said every generation has how many tabs? 2. One here and one what? So the time of the Tabi'un is also the time of the Sahaba. And the time of the Tabi'un is also the time of the Atba' Tabi'in. And the Tabi'un are sandwiched in the middle. For them to even be Tabi'un, they had to have met Sahaba. And for someone to be a Tabi'in, they had to have met the Tabi'in. So the majority of the people of a generation are where? In the middle. They're where? In the middle. Most of the Sahaba are gone. The new generation is coming along. They're living 20, 30, 40, 50, excuse me. And then the new generation is coming. You have grandfather, father, son. The grandfather is what now? He's old. He's waning. He's what? He's waning. He's going away. Everybody understand this? The father is in his prime. And then coming up is the son. Everybody understand this? So the father says, in my time, speaking to who? You. And you're also alive. But your time is not. Everybody clear on this? In other times, I'm talking to you like my father was talking to me. Everybody understand this? Crucially important with regards to English. What is a generation? What is a century? How to properly understand history. For him to have that? So when the Prophet ﷺ was gone, that's done. That's yaqeen. It's only Sahaba and Tabi'een. I.e., most of the Sahaba were what? Gone. So within a century or generation, there's time as well. The beginning of it is not like the middle, let alone the end. For him to have that, we got this. So during the time of the Tabi'een, most of the Sahaba are what? Pretty much gone. Pretty much. And then the junior Tabi'een are coming up. The main Tabi'een is their flourishing prime. What did they do? What was their process to compile and to preserve? Did they have scrolls, suhuf, in their sleeves or their scabbards or their swords or their saddles? No. They did what now? Many of those hadiths that were memorized by heart, many of those hadiths that were written down randomly were now done what? The notes were recopied. And they started writing more and more. But it wasn't a complete what? Or there weren't complete what? Books, ta'leef. There weren't actual books, major books, beginning to end, index, organization. For him to have that, everybody clear on this or not? I take all of your notes and then I now compile all of them. Whose notes are the best? Cursive, shorthand. Who wrote everything? The first thing is what? Put it all in one place. A huge, gigantic folder or bin of everybody's notes. Then I die. My son comes along and does what? He starts putting it together in order, cleaning it up, brushing it up, mopping it up, and putting it into a much neater folder. And then his daughter, his daughter, he comes along and does what? Actually puts it in what? Order. And then it's an actual kitab. Kitab Munir. Kitab Muhammad ibn Munir. It's actual what now? A book. For him to have that. And that's your Musnad, that's your Muwatta, that's your Sahih Bukhari, that's your Sunan Abi Dawud. For him to have that. Moving forward. Faddal ya akhi.
During the era of the junior Tabi'un,
The junior Tabi'un. Not those who met the Sahaba, but they met the Sahaba, but they only met what? They only met what? A handful of Sahaba. And the Sahaba that they met weren't the what? Kibar. He met one or two. He met Ibn Umar. He studied with Ibn Umar. The Tabi'i studied with who? Anas radiallahu anhu. He didn't meet the Kibar of Sahaba. He only met the what? The young companions. Aisha, Jabir. For him to have that, they only met one, if not what? A few. Scattered here and there. The Kibar of Tabi'een are the people who met what? 20, 30, 50, 10, 15 Sahaba, and they studied with them, and they traveled with them, they fought with them in a what? Abundance. In what? Abundance. Then you have the middle level, the tabi'een in the middle. Huh? The tabaqatul wusta. They were people who made a healthy handful of Sahaba, but not a what? Not a large number. And the Sahaba that they met, a few of the kibar, here and there. Most of their studies and their narrations are from the middle level of the Sahaba as well. And then we have the junior, sigar tabi'een. The tabi'een who only met a what? 1 or 2. Bas. And they're called tabi'een, but they as levels. فهمنا هذا? During their era, what took place?
This process underwent serious change.
Serious change. Not minor change, but what? Serious change. Serious change now. A major step. Not a step, but a leap. A leap in the evolution now. Serious change. What happened? And many books were actually compiled, put together. Were those books totally refined like the 3rd century, the 4th century? No. But it was actual ta'leef. It was actual kutub. And not just scrolls, suhuf, notes. Everybody understand this or not? Moving forward.
Many important works were authored in the 2nd century by the
illustrious followers of the successors. Many important works were actually authored in the 2nd century. Then we have
the 3rd century.
The 3rd century, Qarn al-Thalith, the golden era. What took place?
The greatest and most important developments.
This century saw the greatest and most important developments in the compilation of hadith and sunnah, whereas
most significant and important works of hadith were compiled in
the most significant books were written when? In the 3rd century. So what timeline are we talking about now? From year 2 to what? Okay, that. Huh? From the year 200, 201 up until 299, 301, give or take the edges. For him, that everybody understand this? So any alim who lived during that time and who died during that time, he lived and died in the what era? The golden era. And then he wrote his book in that what? Golden era. Such as, off the top, Imam Bukhari or Ahmed or Ibn Majah Nasa'i or Abu Dawud Tirmidhi or no way, not Bayhaqi or Muslim, we said Muslim, or we said the Kutub al-Sitta. Khalas, you can't keep leaning on that crutch forever. You keep spinning the Kutub al-Sitta. Khalas. Or I want other answers. The others who lived and died in the 3rd century. Ibn Khuzaymah. Ibn Khuzaymah died when? Pause the tape. When did Ibn Khuzaymah die? 4th century. What year? What year did Ibn Khuzaymah die? Ibn Khuzaymah died what year? 311. So he technically died in the 4th century. Even though his shuyukh, most of them were from and he actually wrote his book and lived and thrived in so he is, but he isn't. Fahimta? Who else who lived and died in the 3rd century? Ali ibn al-Madini. What books did he have? Al-Ilal, Tayyib, or what books of hadith does he have? What about Ibn Abi Shaybah? Musannaf Ibn Abi Shaybah. Ibn Hibban, 354. No chance. Tayyib, khairan inshallah. We're still not into the deep explanation yet. Moving forward, and many other genres and what? Titles. Different types of books, and also different titles among Sunan Abi Dawud, Sunan Majah, Sunan Nasa'i. That's all one what? Genre. Let alone other genres, such as Sunan, such as Musnad, such as Musannaf, such as Sahih, wa hakadha. All this will be explained in more detail. This is just the outline now. Moving forward, from the golden era.
From the golden era until now, there have been many other genres of hadith.
Many other genres of hadith books. Things that didn't exist in the golden era. Such as, we said yesterday briefly, Mustadrak, Ascent. Or Mushkil al-Athar, Ascent. Or Mu'jam, Ascent. Jami', 3rd century. Sunan, Sunan Kubra, هذا Sunan, خلاص يا أخي. Or, Ahsant, we said Mustadrak already, but it's still good. Or, Mustakhraj. Mustakhrajat. ذكرنا هذا بالأمس. You didn't review your notes enough. طيب, last but not least. طيب, and he says, thus a non-stop evolution. It was non-stop. 5th century, 6th century, 7th century, 8th century, 9th century, it continued. And refinement. What does the word refine mean? Refined sugar. What does that mean?
Through a process of change.
It's polished and smoothed and polished and polished and polished and polished and smooth. The main thing is there or not? It's there. But now we just continually what? Over and over and over and again. Everybody understand this? He says, of those original works, Sunnah, I need a new volunteer. Who wishes to read? A volunteer from the sisters, perhaps. No volunteers to read. تفضل يا أخي.
Sunnah, authority and status.
Authority and status of the Sunnah.
From the aspect of legal authority and validity, the Sunnah is
Equal?
equal with the glorious Quran. Allah, the Exalted, never commands us to obey Him except that orders us to obey His Messenger as well. Allah has warned us against opposing the command of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There is no difference with regards to the authority of the Sunnah between
Matters, another error. I don't know where's up with the guys who's worse, the Sound Art Conference or Abu Hurairah Center.
between matters of belief and creed, worship and
Devotion.
moral character and behavior, and politics and government. Anyone who rejects the Sunnah has rejected the Quran, and consequently left the fold.
A'udhu billah. Type. New slide says Sunnah. Still talking about Sunnah and Hadith as well. Authority and what? Status. Authority, when we say authority, we're talking about what? Issues of what now? Legal issues. Talking about what? Legal issues. What does it say on a dollar bill? I don't know what it says in a Canadian bill, but in America it says legal what? Tender. What does that mean, legal tender?
You can buy and sell with it.
That the person that you buy something or borrow, whatever, however your transaction, they're now in the court of law bound to do what? In the court of law, they're bound to what? They have to take it. He says, I don't want this money, this paper. Give me gold. Give me what? Give me silver. Give me a horse. You say, no, I've given you dollar bills. The judge is going to say what? It is legal? The dollar bill has a what to it? Authority. You have to accept it. Everybody clear on this? That's what we mean by authority. Everybody understand this? And also, not just its authority, but it's what? Status of the Sunnah. That which is not obligatory. That which doesn't pertain to fiqh, legal issues. Everybody clear on this? Do I have to do this? Is it haram? Is it Sunnah or is it fard? Everybody understand that? The Sunnah in itself is what? A lofty status that you should try to implement and practice on any aspect. How you dress, how you eat, how you sleep, whatever the case is. And it's not just a rigid issue of halal, haram. This is fard and that's not fard. Everybody understand this? This is what Muhammad did and it's the proper understanding of it. Let me what? Try to implement it. Everybody clear on this? Everybody understand this or not? Tayyib. From the aspect of legal authority, and when we say from the aspect, why are we mentioning this? Why are we mentioning this? We're not talking about definition. The moment you says from the aspect of this, what does that mean? There could be, from my point of view, kada. From what? My point of view. Once you hear you say from, that automatically means what? There are other points of views. فهمنا هذا؟ من حيث in Arabic. As soon as you hear min haythu, you automatically mean what? It's a very important point for student knowledge to be mentally sharp. The moment I read the beginning of a sentence, I already know what direction I'm going into. فهمت هذا? The moment I read the beginning of a sentence, I already know that it's issue of ijma or issue of what? Khilaf. فهمنا هذا? So from the aspect of legal authority, that means that there are other aspects, other dimensions in which the sunnah is not, equal to the Quran. Simple, guys. You're making it difficult. Wallahi, it's peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Simple, easy. Everybody understand this? From the aspect of authority, what you have to do, the Quran and the Sunnah are what? Equal. There's no difference between the two. From the aspect of reward, from the aspect of having wudu, from the aspect of it being the absolute word of Allah and meaning, then the Quran is different than the Sunnah. From the aspect of all of it being 101% conclusively authentic, the Quran is what? Different than the Sunnah. Every hadith, everything that's attributed to Muhammad is not authentic. Everything in the Quran and Kareem is what? We as Muslims believe is what? Fahimtum? Are there any scholars who say you have to have wudu when you read Sahih Bukhari? But some scholars say you have to have wudu when you read. Well, how can that? Everybody understand this? How many hasanat do you get from reading Sahih Bukhari? How many hasanat do you get from reading the Quran? Everybody understand this? So from the aspect of legislation, pay attention, because a Quran rejector, someone will try to come and trick you up. Are you telling me that Sahih Bukhari, made by a human being, is the same as the Quran, brother? Are you telling me that? So if you haven't studied properly, say, yeah, I'm saying that. Yes, Sahih Bukhari is just like the Quran. And that's scientifically what? That's wrong to say that. That's what? That's wrong to say that. And from the reasons why we have certain innovations in Islam and deviant groups is because the people that were on that which was correct, they went a bit extreme. They went a bit what? Extreme. And it led to other people to do what? Counter it with another act of extremism. Fahimtum? The Muslims have abandoned the Quran. And all they talk about and speak about and study is hadith, 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 hadith. So now I'm going to come and I'm going to fabricate hadiths. I'm going to lie on Muhammad to get the Muslims to do what now? Fahimtum? The problem started where? Everybody understand this? So if you say the Sahih Bukhari is just like the Quran, as if you've disrespected the Quran. Everybody understand this? You're at work, you're at college, and the person who doesn't accept hadiths, he says a hardline question to you. Are you telling me that those books there are the same as the Quran? It's a serious question, or is it serious or not? No question. There's no doubt it's a serious question. Do you believe that? The book that Imam Bukhari wrote, a human being, is the same as the Quran? We got the problem or not? I don't think we understand the problem. Understand? Before we even get into the answer, we haven't properly understood the what? The problem. What is the problem here? Who can explain it in their own words? They're not trying to tell you because that's what you believe.
That the Sunnah is like man-made in the sense that Bukhari is
the books of the Sunnah. Without a question or with question. It's dangerous if we have to stumble over this, guys. Wallahi, if we stumble over this is very sad. If we have to stumble over this. Sahih al-Bukhari, man-made or not? Go lad, I want your answer. It is. So the Sunnah is man-made? No. Only Gulad is speaking. Only Gulad is speaking. Your name Gulad?
Yes.
Allahu Akbar.
I'm joking.
It is or it isn't. I know it's a popular name. I met many brothers with that name in Minnesota. Allah knows how many people I knew with that name in Minnesota. Somali brothers, Gulad. Sahih? Sharmark, Abdullahi. Sahih? Very popular Somali names. Right or wrong? Tayyib. Seattle, I met many, many brothers with that name. Tayyib. So, you, Akhi. Sahih Bukhari, man-made or not? Man-made. Sunnah to Nabi, man-made or not? It's not man-made. There aren't the words of Muhammad. Muhammad wasn't a man. So how is it not man-made? Tayyib. What's important is the book of Imam al-Bukhari, we can agree to this what? Without a question. Is it authentic? That's not the point. The book was offered by a what? Human being. So what is the problem here at work, Umar, or at college? You meet somebody. What's the problem now? They're not telling you that. They're asking you what you believe. You tell a brother you have to follow the sunnah. You have to. And he's saying, are you telling me that Sahih Bukhari is equal to the what?
You're both supposed to agree on that.
We understand the problem or not? فهمنا الإشكال ولا لسه؟ ما فهمنا الإشكال. صح أسد؟ لم نفهم الإشكال. We don't understand the problem. The problem is when someone corners you, they put you in the corner with an issue. And you accept part of it, but don't understand the other aspect in which you're not supposed to accept it. So they trap you with one thing, it would lead to you being trapped in the other thing. That the Quran and the Hadith, with regards to legislation, are no. Not what we believe. We're studying what he's trying to promote to you. Hey, I have to follow the injunctions in the Quran. I have an option of following the injunctions in the Sunnah. And the reason behind that is the Quran and Sahih Bukhari are not equal. Initially or absolutely? Initially, to us, Quran, the Kalam of Allah, compiled, organized, put in the Mus'haf al-Sharif, the Quran, is it equal to Sahih Bukhari? No, it is not. And it's unlawful to say that or to think that. We agree on this or not? Tayyib, the authentic narrations of the Prophet ﷺ, whether in Bukhari or not, when it comes to a rule, a law, something that you can or cannot do, equal to the Quran or not? Yes. So if you accept the first principle without knowing about the second one, then it's very easy for him to trick you into the second one. Everybody understand this? So from the aspect of the rewards, the Quran and Hadith are equal. Naam? They're equal. The rewards that you get, correct? They are unequal. With regards to having tahara, purification, equal or unequal? The speech of Allah, the actual word of God, and the word of Muhammad, did Allah say that specific word? Is revelation from who? Allah. But is that the actual word of Allah? إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. So from the concept of wording, it isn't or is equal. Which one? Fahimtum? Everybody understand this? So from the aspect of halal and haram, the Quran says that you have to do something, and the Sunnah says that you have to do something. They are what? Equal. And if we're having an argument and a debate, I can tell you, Qala Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Prophet he said this, I know the hadith is authentic, and this is the proper understanding of it, you're now bound to take it. And you don't have to say, tell me the Quran first, then give me the hadith. Fahimtum? Everybody understand this or not? There's a huge difference between the two. Moving forward, Allah, the Exalted, never commands us to obey Him, except that He orders us to obey His Messenger as well. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Pay close to this very important point here. There isn't a verse in the Quran in which Allah told us just to obey Him. Just stop and think about that for a second. There's not one verse in the Quran that commands for one to do what? Obey Allah alone. Never. That's a serious point right there. Not one verse in the Quran in which the verse just says, وَأَطِيعُ اللَّهِ وَمَنْ يُطِعِ اللَّهَ. Everybody understand this? Everybody clear on this? How many times is the word obedience mentioned in the Quran? If you Googled it, or back in there they used the index and the corpus and different things like this. Now it's easy. Google the word obedience in the Quran. Use the online engine for the word obedience, obey. How many times would you find it in the Quran? A few times or an abundant amount of times? Google it right now as we speak. How many times would you find it? Obey, obedience, obey, they obey, obeyed. See what happens. See how many times you'll find it. How many times? 68 times. 68 times. Well, what word? Obedience? Now, Google obey. Obey. 24 times for obey. That's almost 100 times. And not once does it say, and obey Allah only. Rather, we have two other types. The second is verses that say, obey Allah and His apostle. Clear on this? And the third type, verses that say what? Obey the messenger without mentioning obeying Allah. So this is from the where? Sahih Bukhari? It's from the Quran. You're speaking to someone who's trying to reject the hadiths, or who are you going to argue? You're going to argue with the hadith on them, or you're going to deal with the what? The Quran, something that he agrees upon. So how is it possible for the sunnah to be optional, for it to be something that's on the side, a footnote, a sideshow, nothing important, it's not been preserved, it's all fabricated, it's all made up? The political people made up the hadiths, the madhabs made up the hadiths, Ahlul Bayt against Ahlul Bayt, Muawiyah, this companion, that companion, they just made everything up. And Allah Azza wa Jal tells us in His Quran to obey Him and His Messenger, tells us in His Quran to obey the Messenger over 60 times. From the logical, rational standpoint. Does that make any sense? For Allah to say, obey someone that you have no way of verifying what he actually said and did. That is why the last point, anyone who rejects the Sunnah has rejected the Quran and consequently left the fold of Islam because you've disrespected Allah. You're basically telling Allah that you tell us to go back to something which is totally what?
Non-existent.
Just bogus. From A to Z. Everything in the Sunnah, the Hadiths are all what? Kulluha. They're all bogus. Any hadith that you can bring me, I'll tell you who fabricated the hadith. The hadith that talk about the virtue of the companions is made up by the Sunnis against the Shi'is. The hadith about Ali and his progeny and Ahlul Bayt, they were made up by the Shi'is against the Sunnis. The hadith that say obey your parents, listen to your parents, were made up by what? Made up by our parents. Hadiths that talk about obeying the ruler, they were made up against the people who were rulers. Everything that you can talk about. The virtue of the Quran, the virtue of spending in Allah's cause was made up for the people to do what? Get money. The church and the state. Everybody understand this? Oh, yeah, man, it kind of makes sense now when you think about it like that. Yeah. Because people of other religions, what do with their texts? They interpret them and warp them to suit their power. How much power does the church have? How much power do they, Read the history of Western Europe and Eastern Europe as well. And you'll see the cardinals, the bishops, the saints, and the people, they're up there with the highest of the high. Of course, the statesmen. The king didn't make certain decisions unless he went back to the church. There was no war that was fought. There was no, he had to go back to the what? Church. There were rules on who he could and could not marry. Read about Louis XIII. Read about France. Read about Germany. There were rules about who he could and could not marry. Not according to the scripture, the words of Jesus, or even Paul. But with the what? So that religious authority, that religious monopoly, that provides the church with a great deal of what? Without a question. A great deal of wealth. A great deal of control of men. And unfortunately, among the Muslims, we also have the same problem. The board of the masjid, the state, the empire. They make up the fatwas. It's halal or it's haram based off of what suits our what? Our desire and us controlling the people. Everybody understand this? Or we promote the agenda that suits our political regime. Just like a husband, as we said, the famous example that we always use, a husband who wishes to control his wife and totally dominate her. He's going to teach her, he's going to give her the information pertaining to what? The virtue of women. Women are shaqaiq al-rijal. Astawsu bin-nisa'i khayran. Treat women kindly. Don't do this, don't do that. No. Khayrukum li ahli wa ana khayrukum li ahli. He's going to tell her, he's going to expose her to the hadith to talk about what? الرجال قوامون على النساء إن المرأة خلقت من ضلع. That's all she's going to hear. Because those hadiths suit his and it keeps him in what? Domination over her. And any other example, students, teachers, parents, the list goes forward. Everybody understand this? So this is what they said with regards to the hadiths. Hadiths are made up. They're totally made up to only suit the desires of the different groups and schisms and the different facets of people. We understand this problem or not? We understand this or not? Do we understand this? Everybody understand this? Right. So historically, socially, when I ask a question, is this a reality or not? Which are the two? No question. Man is going to use whatever he can to maintain what? Power. Religion, science, anything. Everybody understand this? In America, before there was the civil rights movement, emancipation of slavery or slaves in the South, there were two main classes of Americans. Two main classes. There are other groups, but two main classes. We had those that were for Southern slavery and those who were against it. Whether you call them abolitionists, whether you call them Quakers, whether you call them Yankees, and then you had the traditional Protestant Christian planter class. Everybody understand this? The planter class. So obviously the abolitionists who lived in the North, or even those who lived in the South, what did they say with regards to Southern slavery? They said that slavery is what? Inhumane, immoral, wrong, oppressive. It's against religion. It's against everything. And the Southerners, they said what? The human body, the anatomy, the brain of the Negro is not like the brain of the Caucasian. They had scientific studies to prove this, to show this, that what we're doing is the only way. It's the way that God wanted it to be. Everybody understand this? To validate their what? Power, money, wealth, affluency, and the list goes forward. Everybody understand this? So then, with regards to having a debate of slavery, wasn't necessarily about right or wrong. Everybody understand this? It's about what? Money, control. If we release all our slaves, what will we have? Everybody understand this? So therefore, they validated their slavery and their treatment of races based off of what? Science, based off of religion. Everybody understand this? And there are many other examples that you can make in which the human beings, they have to validate their what? Thirst for power. Everybody understand this? Thirst for what? For power. This is a reality. I'm the student of knowledge. I'm the resident scholar. I'm the speaker. Whether you like it or not, I enjoy a certain type of what? Power over people, no doubt. So therefore, I'm going to do whatever I can in my ability to do what? To keep that power and not just maintain it, but to enhance it as well. Yes. More, bigger, better. Everybody understand this? So this is their argument against the hadiths. So logically or historically, the argument could be accepted, perhaps. There were hadiths that were fabricated and made up. Everybody understand this? It's something that you can't deny historically. Well, that can, however, there's one major problem. One person you forgot about. One thing that you forgot about, and that's what? Is that Allah Azza wa Jal, He said in the Quran what? فَإِن تَنَازَعْتُمْ فِي شَيْءٍ وَرَسُولٍ. If you differ on anything, Allah says take it back to Allah and His Messenger. So me and you differ over an issue. Let's go to Allah and solve it. Can we do that or not? Can we go to Allah and solve it? Can me and him travel to Allah and solve the problem? So obviously that means something. What does that mean? The Kitab, the book of who? Allah, the Quran. The Quran says you can't wear a white thobe and you can wear a blue shirt. So I'm right and you're wrong. Clear on this? And Allah also said, what Rasul? And take it back to the messenger. So you say white is the best color. I say blue is the best color. Let's take it back to let's let the messenger arbitrate between us and see who's right and who's wrong. Where's the messenger of Allah? So that obviously means taking it back to his what? His ruling. So therefore, based off of your argument, Allah, the Lord of the heavens and the earth, told us to go back to a source which is totally bogus, worse than unreachable. Because there are thousands of hadiths in circulation, brother. But they are all what? Made up for political, social, economic, financial, racial reasons. Everybody understand this or not? Everybody understand this or not? So this is the levy here. This is the proof against them. Maybe what you're saying is right. There were Muslims who made up hadiths for power. Yes, there were. But Allah told us to do what? Go back to it. And Allah, who knows everything that's going to happen, Allah knows everything that was, everything that is, everything that will be. And Allah also, Azza wa Jal, He knows what? مَا لَمْ يَكُنْ أَلَّوْ كَانَ كَيْفَ كَانَ. For him now, that which didn't exist and won't exist. But if it did exist, how it would? We got this or not? So Allah said, go back to the messenger. And Allah knew that there would be Shi'i, Sunni, this state, this empire, this church, this one, this one. Allah knew these things. But yet instead He told us to go back to something. So you've disrespected who? When you say that all the hadiths are fabricated? Allah. No question about that. Because you're saying that Allah told us to return back to something which is totally what? From A to Z. That's why it's kufr akbar. For him to have that, we got this or not? Everybody understand how dangerous and serious this issue is? Everybody understand this? So this is the proof in the Quran. Allah never ever says, just obey Allah. It's always something else. Rather, we've said, وَأَطِيعُ الرَّسُولِ. Allah says about obeying the messenger by himself. So one may say, Gulad, he says what? Those verses were only pertaining to the Sahaba. وَمَا أَتَاكُمُ الرَّسُولُ فَخُذُوهُ وَمَا نَهَاكُمْ عَنْهُ فَانْتَهُوا وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ إِنَّ اللَّهَ شَدِيدُ الْعِقَابِ. Surah Al-Hashr, right? This surah is about what battle? Not Badr, la ilaha illallah. Banu Nadir. The Arabian Jews and the Sahaba. The verse says, and whenever the messenger gives you, then do what? Take it. I.e., that means what? No, doesn't mean that. Ahsanti, faqat. That's only pertaining to the spoils of war. And that's not even true. Fay. Al-fay ghayr al-anfal. Intabihi. Hunak fay, hunak ish? Ghanima. Spoils of war is not fay. The fay is the money that's put forth before fighting. For not to be no fighting. Al-Muhim, what's important is, he says that this verse is talking about what? Following Muhammad's way, following the Sunnah, Sahih Bukhari, or spoils of war. So that's wrong, brother. Next proof from the Quran, I have to follow Hadith. Maybe the verse was sent down for that. Maybe mumkin. But why would it remain in the Quran for 1,000 years later if it was 101% only relative to his time period? That's also disrespect to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Does Allah tell us a story that we don't benefit from? Does Allah teach us about something unless it has a direct connection to what? انتبهوا ألم تر كيف فعل ربك بعاد إرم ذات كملوا جابوا الصخر بالواد ذي الأوتاد الذين فأكثروا. طيب, where's Ad? Where's Ad today? Fir'aun, Thamud, kulluhum. So why does Allah tell us about them? Unless what they did is also relative to what we do. So Allah says, whatever the messenger takes you of spoils of war, or for argument's sake, why is it still in the Quran in 2018? And if he says it's not in the Quran, I have a different Quran, then there's no argument that's even needed. There's no argument that's even what? Needed. Fahimtum? Everybody understand this? You understand, Mahdi? So even if it was talking about the spoils of war, what is more deserving to be taken? A gold cup, a horse, a camel, a breastplate, or one's faith and one's deen, one's religion? Which one is more important? Without a question, wattaqullah, fear Allah, because Allah is severe in punishment if you don't take the spoils of war. That is rationally what? That doesn't make sense. That doesn't make what? Whatsoever. Everybody understand this or not? So all of these different verses from the Quran prove the status of the Sunnah. And there are many, many ayats. We'll mention some of them in our next session, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, with regards to things that prove the status of the, and also the different ways that the Quran establishes the status of the Sunnah. Be careful. Because there can be one verse, or there can be 5 verses pertaining to one what? One way, such as obey. But we have other styles. Allah warns us. Allah praises those who follow. Allah, you ever understand this? The different ways in which the Quran, not hadiths, but the Quran establish the status and authority of the khairan, insha'Allah. Hadith science. How much time we have left if we have to stop? Right now, right? Khairan, insha'Allah ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala